So we are recording now, and now the slides should be up. We'll talk about Chapter 7 in the news media today and Friday. Sometimes the news media is referred to as the fourth pillar of government. What are the first three pillars or branches of government? The president is what branch? Executive branch. And the Supreme Court is called what? What branch?
Judicial.
Judicial, and then Congress is the
I think is legislative.
legislative branch.
Yeah. 1 point for Johnny.
So those are the three branches in the Constitution, but sometimes the media is considered a fourth branch or a fourth pillar of government simply because they have the power of influence. So let's talk about the media today. It's going to begin on page 229 in your textbook. But just for your own knowledge of the subject, the idea of a press, and especially a press that is biased or partisan, is not new. It's been around since the first two political parties, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists, who were for banking and commerce and were kind of led by Alexander Hamilton. There was a newspaper called the Gazette of the United States that was biased towards them. The Anti-Federalists, who were the group that was supported by farmers and the intellectuals, and Thomas Jefferson was kind of their spokesman. They had the National Gazette. Let me give you an example from our state. There are two big statewide newspapers. There is the Daily Oklahoman. It is headquartered in Oklahoma City. And then there is the Tulsa World, which is headquartered in Tulsa. These are statewide newspapers. You're going to find articles by the Associated Press that you would find in other newspapers across the nation. But then you're going to find articles that are, written with issues that have to do with our state. And there's going to be journalists at each of those newspapers that write articles. Traditionally, the Daily Oklahoman has been a right-leaning paper, conservative, and the Tulsa World has been more left-leaning and liberal. So when we talk about the press and is there bias in the press, this is not new. This has been around for a couple of 100 years. So let's talk about these three functions of the media that are found on pages 229 through 231. You need to know these three functions. So highlight them, underline them, take pictures of your phone and post them on your mirror. Do whatever you need to do to know these things. Just kidding. It's still an open book test. And here are the three big functions of media. Number one, if we want information, we want to learn more about something and be better informed, that's what the media is about. That's not right. Let me take that off of there. So the media informs and kind of functions as a monitor so that the citizenry, that is the common people, you and I, can know what's happening, not just in the government, although that's a major thing, but what's happening in our nation. Are you guys aware of? Have you guys been informed of all of the immigrants from Haiti trying to get in at the southern border in Texas? Have you guys seen that? There's literally a small town that's been set up underneath this bridge in Del Rio, Texas, where the people have their tents and they've built shelters out of tree limbs. And there was pictures the other day of border patrols on horses driving them back across the river. This is a big deal right now for the Biden administration, where these people from Haiti. Now remember, Haiti is the island where there's been a couple of earthquakes and their prime minister was assassinated, and there's all kinds of issues going on there. These people somehow got off of the island and got to South and Central America, and now they've migrated all the way to the border at Texas and Del Rio. So the news media informs us of that. You know, Trump was criticized a lot for the people at the border and separating children from parents and keeping them in, they called them cages, but they were rooms that were fenced off. Some of the kids were in very nice facilities, but you know, he got a lot of criticism for it. And now Biden is starting to feel some heat from the media because you got people camping out underneath the bridge, and the border patrol on horses are driving some of them back across. What's going on here? So we keep informed. We keep aware of things through the media. And it seems like every night at 5:30, we watch the ABC World News. Every night it starts with breaking news. So you get special reports and breaking news to be informed about issues and occurrences going on. So the media informs. Any questions on that? Have you guys been keeping up with the 22-year-old woman that came up missing, and there were videos of her and her boyfriend fighting a month ago? What's that?
The YouTuber, her name's like Gabby or something.
Yeah, they found her body, and they did identify it as her.
They did?
They identified her, and her boyfriend has been missing now for a week, and they're searching in this 25,000 acre swamp area in Florida. His parents say he just left, but it really looks suspicious. But we are informed of what's happening in our world. Now, I asked you at the beginning of the class back in August if you were going to commit yourself to being a good citizen as you matured into adulthood and entered into the adult world. And one of the things that you're going to have to do in order to be a good citizen is stay informed. Stay informed. The second thing that the media does is it creates a forum or a platform for there to be public discussion, specifically between elected officials and the public, as well as discussion amongst the people with the people. But this function, as far as it being a forum, really leans heavily into the political side of things. So in this way, the media educates the public about what's going on in the government. And as people obtain this information, they can discuss it or dialogue or debate more in a more informed way with each other, as well as if they wanted to write a letter to their congressman or wanted to call them on the phone and talk to them about these things. The media makes it possible for there to be public discussion. This is something that is a privilege for us as Americans, because in other countries, there's a lot of places where the government, a lot of countries where the government controls the media. And the public is only told what the government wants them to know. And people do not have freedom of speech in many countries like we do. That is so they cannot criticize public officials or government leaders. And so certainly there would be no opportunity in many countries for there to be a forum, kind of what we call a marketplace of ideas and discussion. There is no public square. That's a phrase you need to be aware of, the public square. There is no public square where these things can be discussed. Even citizens discussing it with other citizens, certainly not in public. So we're pretty blessed, and we're pretty fortunate as Americans to have this function from the media. Because remember, a free press is a part also of the First Amendment. Free press as well as free speech. They go hand in hand. And then the third major function of the media is to be a watchdog. And what this means is they keep an eye on what's going on in the government. And if they find some kind of shenanigans, I love that word, some kind of shenanigans going on, some kind of scandal, it's going to be reported on the evening news, or it's going to be breaking news. Now, going back all the way to the classical liberal thinking, this is the primary role of the media. Not to entertain, not to create a forum, but the primary purpose of the media is to oversee the state. Keep an eye on them. And if there's any kind of abuses or shenanigans, they're supposed to report on that. And this is the most important role that overrides all other functions. And related to that is there must be a free market There must be a free market economy for the media to truly be independent from the government. And this is something our chapter reveals, that most, well, pretty much all media is in it to make money. Sadly, many media outlets are no longer primarily concerned with informing the public as they watch over the government and to keep integrity in there. A lot of news media, they're reporting on things and they're crafting their story so that it makes money. I forgot who the guy is that's quoted in here. Let me see if I can find him real quick. It was with Trump. Yeah. The former head of CBS, this is on page 233. Because some people believe that Trump won in 2016 because the media covered him so extensively. And the reason they covered him, of course, was because here's a guy who's never been in politics. He's been a media personality for years. He's a tycoon, a multimillionaire. He's campaigning about cleaning the swamp, that is cleaning up Washington, D.C. He's kind of he kind of has no filter. He says what he thinks. And so he was just pure gold for the media. So many people think that he won because he got so much coverage, but the former leader of CBS said that Trump may not be good for America, but he's darn good for CBS. In other words, Trump means more green, more cha-ching for CBS. Anyway, I kind of got on a rabbit trail there. The media is independent from the government in a free market, and yet they have become more profit focused. I want to talk about this role of watchdog for a little bit because it seems like every few months or every few weeks, there's some kind of a potential political scandal. It really came to light in the 1970s with a affair called Watergate. President Nixon, Watergate went all the way to Nixon. And it ultimately led to his resigning, the only president to resign, which I believe if he hadn't done that, he would have been the only president to be impeached and removed. Because Clinton and Johnson and Trump have all been impeached, but they were not removed from the presidency. Both houses of Congress have to vote to kick the president out. So in the case with Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump, Trump twice, the House of Representatives impeached, but then when it went to the Senate did not impeach. And so, but I really believe Nixon would have been not only impeached, but he would have been impeached by both houses and then had been removed from office. Anyway, Watergate was brought to the public by journalists. Bob Woodward, this guy here, and Carl Bernstein. They were journalists for the Washington Post. Now, this is what they look like in the 70s. They don't look like that today, but they wrote several articles that came out in the Washington Post and started to expose the Watergate affair. What the Watergate affair was about was Nixon's men hired some people to break into the Democratic National Headquarters and try to steal information, and they got caught. And the Democratic National Headquarters were in the Watergate Hotel, so that's why it's called Watergate. So they came out with their book, All the President's Men. I haven't read the book, but the movie's fantastic. It came out like 1 year after the book and like 1 year after Watergate, so it was very fresh. And now like I said, it seems like there are scandals and abuses of government power and shenanigans by politicians that seem to be going on all the time. So that's the watchdog function. Any questions on those three functions? Informing, creating a forum, and the watchdog. All righty, anybody in any of the schools with the aspirations of being a journalist? All right. So as we move to page 231, as we continue to move along, we want to talk about the types of media and move on to who owns the media. And hopefully we're going to get to, yeah, we're going to get to some of the, see, we just did the three roles of media. We're going to look at some of the practices of media. But anyway, let's talk about the types of media very quickly. As little as 25 years ago, 1996, primarily your media was either printed, that is newspapers, magazines, journals, or it was broadcast on television, or you could be, go see a movie like All the President's Men, if you didn't want to read the book, which is another print media, right? Books. Video games were not so much, I mean, they were, of course, they're a type of media, but you didn't have games in 1996 like you have games today. For example, I'm a child of the 80s. Pac-Man, Dig Dug, Mrs. Pac-Man, Frogger. These are video games. Even in the 90s, you would have things like Tecmo Bowl football, with this really old game system called, I don't remember. That's how old it is. I mean, I'm talking about times like Atari and Nintendo 64, Nintendo, I think that's what it is. So in 96, my wife got me, for our first Christmas together, she got me this Sega Genesis. I mean, I was uptown in 96. And I still prefer games like football and basketball and Centipede. So today, my son, he's a gamer, not a big time gamer, but he loves it. He subscribes to Gameplay. He's playing games like, help me out, guys. What are some modern games? I played some games with him a couple of years ago, and I just ran around and got killed all the time.
We got Rocket League, Modern Warfare.
That's it. He plays Rocket League. He plays Modern Warfare. He plays The Last of Us. You heard of The Last of Us? The Last of Us. And these games are like, they're like movies almost. And I'm like, who wants to sit here and watch 15 minutes of movie and then play for 5 minutes? But anyway, I think there's some politics in some of these games. All right. One of Professor Bings's little rants. Video games back in the day were video games. Anyway.
I need Alexander Baker, Bryce Tackett to the office, Jay and Sarah Skelton to the office.
So 25 years ago, you'd have this as your main media. And even if you go back 10 years before that to 86, you're going to have, for the broadcast media, you're going to have basically these three right here: ABC, NBC, CBS. I don't think Fox came along until, well, not Fox.
I need Andrew McKenzie and Ryan.
I don't think CNN came along until the late 80s. ESPN is just 30 years old, 1990. Fox came about around 92. So you go back 35 years ago when you had a young, even more dynamic instructor Bings, about age 15. And these were your three main sources of broadcast media. Today, right? You got print, and even most of this, your newspapers and your magazines, you can get them on your Kindle or whatever device you use. Paper newspapers are I can't even get a Daily Oklahoman anymore in McAllister, or I can get a Tulsa World, but you still have print media, you have your broadcast media, your films, and your films are becoming more and more political. Your sporting events, not sporting events, but places like ESPN are becoming more political. Just show the sports. Don't tell me what you think about the people's politics, right? News media. There's so much more news media outlets. And so here's how the media has transformed from these three. And this isn't even probably half of it anymore. This is an older slide. So there's so many outlets to get your information. But this doesn't necessarily mean that we have more choices. Notice with me here that there are basically 6 media giants. who control 90% of what we read, watch, or listen to. For example, you guys know that Disney, they are the parent company of ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Marvel Studios, Miramax. And so you might, instead of thinking, oh, look at all these choices, these choices are basically funneled into 6 main giants, and the bosses from the headquarters are going to tell these affiliates, this is what we want you to focus on. And probably except for News Corps, these other 5 are going to be left leaning to the liberal side. And that's going to affect what they put out. Now look at this here. Look at this difference over 40 years. In 1983, 90% of all US media was owned by 50 companies. But in 2012, those 6 giants controlled 90%. So you go from 50 to 6.
He's buying them all.
And so while we have all these,
Buying.
plus a whole lot more, it's really
They bought Star Wars,
an illusion of choice,
that big one.
because these big 6 or these big 8
I wouldn't be surprised.
are basically streamlining what's being reported and shared with the media. But I will say that there are a lot more today, which we could add to this here. There are a lot more independent sources that are not controlled by these giants. You just got to search for them. You got to search for them and discover them. So any questions on the mass media, the different types and the ownership of them? So that gets us through page. You want to make sure you read this stuff, because I didn't go into details about radio and social media and all those things. Of course, you'll be outlining the chapter, but make sure you read it. But this gets us through about halfway of the chapter.
They bought ABC.
Gets us to page 250. So do you have any questions on that? What we'll look at on Friday is how the media influences. And we'll look at 3 primary ways that the media influences you and I. Well, I'm going to let you go 5 minutes early, so have a great Wednesday and Thursday. Have a great Western day at Panama. Y'all going to do any line dancing?
Are we?
Not that we know of.
Okay,
Oh, Professor Banks,
yeah,
I should be in class on Friday, but it's playoff weekend. So like I have games on Thursday. If we win them all, I'll be in class on Friday. But if we lose, I won't be in class on Friday. I'll let you know.
okay.
Hopefully class.
Win them, just win them.
Just win them. All right. Have a good weekend.
And if you guys are struggling, just think about, I want to hear Mr. Bing's Friday.
Yeah.
Give it that extra effort. All right.
All right.
Mr. Bings,
Yep,
Friday,
yep.
me and Morgan will not be here. We have to go to an FFA event.
You and who?
Morgan,
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
And
wait.
you are again, let me make sure
Jonathan.
that, 'cause the hats are throwing me off. Okay,
Also, Mr. Bings, Gabby, I have homecoming practice, so I will not be in class on Friday.
okay, all righty. I'll post the video so you
Okay,
can watch it.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions? Anything from Vianne? Because it's just you and me now. All right, we will see y'all then.